Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rundown. I'm your host, Dr. Sam Zender. And if you're just listening, you can't tell, but viewers can obviously see I'm sitting a little bit side saddle here. That's because my leg, unfortunately, is locked because of a hinge brace that I have due to an injury I sustained a couple days ago. It's been actually a tumultuous couple days, about 9 days. Last week, I tore my UCL. A couple days ago, this knee injury, probably my LCL is what I'm suspecting, both from jujitsu. And I mentioned that just to provide context, not to disparage the sport at all, because I actually love it. Have had a lot of fun with participating in it the last year or so. But I just felt the need to kind of get on and start blabbing a little bit, sharing some thoughts and insights that I've had. There's not really a script here, so hopefully it doesn't get too off tangent. But I've been active for most of my life, probably 25 out of my 30 years, and going back to t-ball, soccer, that sort of stuff that most kids in America do. But even after finishing organized sports, I played, a year of Division III football up here in Mequon, and then stopped playing that because of concussions, and just felt like it was in the best interest of my health. But even after that, though, still got into Olympic lifting, did a few competitions, then CrossFit, and then Jiu-Jitsu. So point is, I've had a very extensive background in being active, and obviously has contributed a lot to my passion of being a physical therapist. And yet I've never had an experience quite like I've had over the last, especially 48 hours. But even the elbow injury occurring last week, even that has again created a new perspective for me that I think is valuable to discuss, because it's unique to me, but many people out there, probably some of you watching this, have had these certain kinds of thoughts and perspectives on the injury and rehab process. I'm not exactly sure if my knee in particular is going to need surgery. I don't think my elbow will, thankfully. I mean, the literature is pretty supportive of not needing surgery for UCL tear if you're not going back into a throwing sport specifically. So thankfully, I'm not too worried about my fastball or my curveball. Honestly, I don't really throw things much in general. If I do, it tends to be more underhand, so I should be pretty functional there. But the knee is obviously, going to be needed for just general mobility. And so, we're going to see how things go. It feels a little bit better than it did yesterday, which is encouraging. But we're still playing it safe and making sure that we can give it some time before we make any rash decisions. But again, this is really the major injury, or first major injury, or series of injuries really, that I've had in all these years of being active. I've been very fortunate and lucky there, I suppose you could say. And then the last maybe 9-10 days have felt kind of the opposite. Jiu-jitsu is actually statistically just as safe as wrestling in terms of injuries per exposure. About 9 injuries per 1,000 hours of exposure from research that I've read recently, anyways. And in 4 years of wrestling, I've never had more than maybe a minor ache or a sprain type thing. So I, again, don't want to disparage the sport at all, but I think it's really just comes down to more bad luck, unfortunately bad timing, and that's how the cards lay. So, but it's given me, again, a shift in perspective, because as somebody who has been active their whole life and has worked with athletes and been around this kind of high achieving type of mentality, we tend to identify, and this is not unique just to athletes, but athletes are a good example of this. We tend to identify with an external sense of achievement and with the activity that we engage in. And so when we can't participate in that activity, it feels as if our identity is gone, right? And you see this all the time with athletes who retire or just stop playing for whatever reason at high level, mid level, low level. It's a very normal process to go through. I certainly went through a version of this when I stopped playing football. Football was my love and passion. I identified like wholly as a football player. Like I was a student and I took school seriously as well. But if you ask me, like, what do you do, or what kind of person are you? Like, football is going to be probably one of the first couple of things that I talk about. And when I decided to walk away from the sport at that point, it was probably a good year before I felt confident in myself and comfortable with my identity. I think getting into Olympic lifting and everything that followed there helped a lot because it allowed me something to latch onto. But it's a very normal process to sort of feel lost and helpless almost. So I think it's important to acknowledge that because a lot of times we don't want to talk about the mental health side of things, and it's easy for us to just leave it at the physical observation of the injury and say, oh, it looks like that hurt, and then just view on paper that, well, it might be 3, 6, 9 months of recovery, but there's really a lot more to that process than just simply time and letting body tissues heal. The mental piece is something that can linger even beyond the full recovery process, even if you get back onto the field. And a lot of the athletes may have, limited confidence in their ability to move, or limited trust in their body to hold up. And unfortunately, we see that a lot in the research and in clinical practice that an injury or certain sets of injuries can deter athletes from having the same kind of success that they used to have. But really what I felt was important to share, what I've been reflecting on recently was, what value for myself do I bring to my family? And it's been very evident that my kids, as much as they love me and as much as my wife supports me, none of them really care necessarily how much weight I can lift. They don't care if I win gold at some competition. That external achievement that at times brings me a positive sense of identity, and helps me feel competitive and kind of scratch that itch to win. Ultimately, that is not the most important part of my life, especially at this phase of my life, having multiple young kids and a wife that's very recently postpartum. It's caused a huge shift in my perspective on what really role do I fit into, what's my value in the world, in life in general right now, and for those around me. And the main thing is being present as a dad and as a husband, and being able to help at the house, at home, and being able to be supportive and play with the kids, which right now, of course, is difficult. We've been reading a lot more books than on average. Usually, I love reading books with the kids, but usually my wife is more of the book reader, the craft doer. I'm more of the chase them around the house type thing, pick them up, all the stereotypical dad stuff, and that's had to shift quite a bit, and it's not easy to accept that. It's been tough to try to explain that to a 5 and a 2-year-old. The 2-month-old, he doesn't really care, but the 5 and the 2-year-old, try to explain to them that, well, Dada can't do some of those things right now. Dada has a boo-boo, and we don't know how long it's going to last. Is not easy. But the point of me sharing this is, I think many of us probably have a lot more value to those around us than we give ourselves credit for. And you might think if you go through a physical injury or rehab process and you can't partake in your activity, or you can't be competitive, that externally, yes, we might not be doing what we want to do, and we might not be achieving what we want to achieve, but recognize that you have much more value inherently and impact on those around you than just the sport or the thing that you do. I think that's much more prevalent to you when you go through an injury, and when you have this sort of loss, right? Is you don't just lose the activity, but you can lose your ability to do things outside of that as well, just in normal daily life. And it allows you to kind of take a step back and reflect and say, okay, really, what is my role? What matters ultimately? Now, it's easy for me to say this, of course, because I wasn't getting paid by any physical activity I do. I wasn't getting paid as a CrossFitter or jiu-jitsu athlete or whatnot. So, there, I would say, yes, your perspective may be very different on that loss, because now you're losing income and, being able to support your family there. But 99.9% of us, we're being active for just general health and recreation. And so really, I think it boils down to, the question boils down to, what's the reason that you're doing all this anyway? And it's probably not, or hopefully not, so that you can have an external sense of achievement, an external sense of winning. Now, there's nothing wrong with winning. There's nothing wrong with being competitive. I'm still very competitive. But hopefully your why and your reasoning is much more long-lasting, more permanent, and deeper than just the thing you do, right? It's the people that you can impact on a daily basis and who can rely on you and whom you can support, and whose lives you can change just by being yourself and being able to do what you can do and provide your talents and abilities to them. So because I've been on crutches and leg locked out for the last couple of days, I've not been again very useful and impactful, and so it's been kind of a way to force me to see the impact of choices recreationally that I've made. I'll try to say it diplomatically here, and it caused me to reflect, like, okay, maybe hopefully I'm don't need surgery. If I do or don't, there's going to be a rehab process, but what is the next step after this? And I am deciding to not go back to the jujitsu out of fear and avoidance because I'm scared or paranoid, but really it's a matter of, well, if these injuries or if this activity may not be appropriate for me anyways. And again, it's not, the point of me saying this is not to disparage the sport because I love it, and there's people that do it for decades and never have really any injuries. But at this stage in life is, maybe not the most appropriate type of thing to be doing if the risk is higher for me to not be able to support family and not be able to be there and present for those around me who are most important. And so then it becomes a matter of, well, what can you do that is useful still or helps you be useful to them, but still allows you to, scratch sort of that competitive itch and to push yourself mentally and physically. Certainly the worst thing you could do is give up and stay inside and be a recluse and say, well, can't get injured if I, never move. Somebody said to me after I told them about this knee injury that, well, there's going to be risks involved with everything in life. So, maybe you can get back onto the mats, or maybe you should, essentially suggesting like, as soon as you get better, then keep doing it again. And I can appreciate that perspective. I don't think there's anything wrong with returning to a sport that you get injured in, of course. But everyone's situation is a little bit different. I think that this is something else to consider is that if you or somebody or professional athletes certainly that gets a lot of publicity, maybe they don't return for different reasons, and it's easy for us to say that it's because of quitting or a weak mentality, and we jump to conclusions on what their why was. But I think it's important that we recognize that there's a lot of different factors that play a role into these kind of decisions, and that could be to start the activity or to stop it or pause it or whatever you do in life. But point is being open and supportive for other people that at different phases of life, different kinds of activities are going to be more appropriate versus less appropriate. And as long as you stay engaged in an activity and you have a sense of community around you, you're trying to push yourself and make yourself a better person mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. That's really what matters, so that you can again be as impactful and supportive to those around you. What activity specifically that looks like can vary, and you can have a lot of different reasons to do or not do something. But I think it's important to give yourself grace and recognize that you're much more valuable to others around you than just what you do and what you win, if you will. Your sense of achievement and value and accomplishment shouldn't necessarily dictate how valuable you truly are relative to those around you and to other people in your life. So we'll see how the rehab process goes. I'm encouraged. I mean, my knee in particular has been feeling a little bit better since yesterday even, and since Wednesday when this first happened. So hopefully that continues and keep building confidence and whatnot. But it's going to be, again, a bit of a journey just to an extent. Whether it's long or short, we'll see. But it certainly has opened up my eyes and my perspective into how I can be more empathetic. Not that I wasn't empathetic per se. At least I wouldn't say that I wasn't, but it has allowed me to actually feel a lot of what this injury and rehab process is going to look like, and understand a lot of the fears and anxieties that go along with this as well. Because again, the physical side of things honestly was not even my main concern. Pain level has not been tremendous. It's not certainly like a 10 out of 10 level at all. And even the thought of going through a rehab process and trying to recover my body at the long end, 9 to 12 months, if it was surgery or anything like that, that part wasn't necessarily scary. It was, what is the impact that this is going to have on family? And you start to think about all these practical things. What about income? What about insurances, things, and bills, and all this stuff, and how are the kids going to get their needs? And point is, these are very normal, real human emotions. I think it's important that we acknowledge that at any phase in life, you are much more than just your injury. You're much more than just the physical nature of being an athlete or being an active person. There's a ton more that goes into the human experience at all phases, but especially when you are trying to recover or improve on your situation, such as through an injury or through rehab. There's a lot of factors at play, and it's totally normal to have these concerning, anxious thoughts. But being surrounded by people who can keep you grounded, quite frankly, is key. My kids asked a little bit like what my brace is, and they asked me why I'm wearing it and things like that. But besides that, they just kind of go back to as close of normal life as possible. They want to play with you, they want your attention, and all of that, and they want you to be dad. And not everybody watching here is going to have kids, and that's totally fine. The point is not to say that that's the only thing that can help redirect your attention, your emotions, but that's an example in my life, anyways, of how that has, even in this short window of time, been extremely supportive. Is that family has been what keeps me anchored and keeps me grounded in, well, this is going to be okay. Regardless of exactly how it happens, we're going to make it through, and we're going to band together and support each other. And so hopefully you have a community of people in your life, whether it's your family or your friends or coworkers or people that are engaged in similar activities as you that you can reach out to. Please don't ever feel like you are alone in the process. If you even want an encouraging message, shoot me a message too. Shoot me a DM. Happy to provide some encouraging words as well, and recognize that probably all of us at some point in life will go through a kind of experience like this. And it's easy to get wrapped up in the negative thoughts and emotions, but acknowledge that those are real and it's okay to feel those, but don't let them dictate the process and the entire recovery duration, because that's when a lot of times things go south and you don't reach your full potential, compared to if you recognize that it's not permanent and that you can stay on a positive path and you can get better, regardless of where you're at right now. So hopefully this is encouraging for everybody watching. Again, join me in the process here. I'll keep updates as things go along. Could be a couple weeks, could be a couple months, who knows. But either way, the goal is to not let the downtimes dictate you, have a positive mindset, and focus on what you can do, not what you can't, and just keep getting better every day.